If someone dies owning a mobile home in Louisiana, people get hung up on one question. Is it immobilized or not? And yes, that matters. But here's the simplification that saves a lot of time. Either way, the mobile home still gets transferred through a succession. The difference is mostly how it's treated for sale or transfer, whether it's being sold with the land or separately from the land. So let's make this easy. Think of a succession like the legal bridge that gets property from the deceased person's name into the heirs' names. A mobile home doesn't magically bypass the bridge. You still have to establish who the heirs are and what they receive. The question is whether you can use the simplified version of that process. In Louisiana, if the estate is below the small succession value limit, you can often transfer property using a small succession affidavit instead of opening a full-blown court succession. The commonly used value limit is $125,000 based on the gross value at the time of death. And there's also a separate rule that can allow a small succession affidavit when the death was more than 20 years before the affidavit is recorded. Quick reminder, this is not legal advice, and details matter, especially when there are liens, multiple heirs, or disagreements. So here's the flow. First, figure out whether the estate qualifies for a small succession. If it does, the small succession affidavit is the shortcut that can transfer both movable property and immovable property as long as you meet the legal requirements. Now, where does immobilization come in? Immobilization does not change the basic truth that the mobile home passes through the succession. What immobilization changes is mostly this. Is the mobile home treated like part of the real estate? Or is it treated like a separate movable item that can be transferred or sold on its own? If the mobile home is properly immobilized, Louisiana law treats it as immovable. Basically, it becomes part of the land for ownership purposes once the correct paperwork is recorded. In real life, that usually means the home is typically sold or transferred together with the land, and the succession documents and recordation line up like a normal real estate transfer. If the mobile home is not immobilized, it's usually treated as movable, meaning it's more like a separate asset. Practically, that's when you see mobile homes being transferred without the land, transferred separately or moved. The succession still establishes who inherits it, but the mechanics afterward can look different because the home isn't automatically bundled into the land sale. So if you're dealing with a family situation and you're trying to decide what matters most, I'd focus on two questions in this order. First, do we qualify for a small succession affidavit? If yes, that's often the simpler path. Secondly, are we trying to sell or transfer the home with the land or separately from the land? That's where immobilized versus not immobilized becomes the practical issue. Here are the common real-life scenarios where the distinction matters. If the heirs want to sell the property as one package, land and home together, immobilization tends to make that cleaner because the home is treated as part of the immovable. If the heirs want to sell the home separately, move it, or it's sitting on a leased lot, then you're usually dealing with a mobile home that functions as a separate asset, and your next steps will follow that reality. But either way, the succession step, whether by small succession affidavit or a fuller court succession, is what gives the heirs the legal authority to do anything in the first place. So, if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Don't let immobilized versus not distract you at the start. Start by figuring out whether you're in small succession territory, and if you are, the small succession affidavit may be the fastest way to get the property into the heirs' names. Then decide whether the mobile home is being handled with the land or without the land, because that's usually the real world difference immobilization creates.